next week we are not having our own service, but instead we're inviting the congregation to join with the good folks down at First Congregational Church of Danbury, and we'll be sending out the meeting link for that later in the week. So our King Street staff are taking a little break from putting together these online services and enjoying our neighbors' hospitality. So keep your eyes open for that. We will have a brief meeting of our Safe Reopening Committee after church today. So if you're part of that, please make sure you stick around. The thrift shop is closed, so don't bring things by. Keep looking in on friends from church, and we'll try and make sure that we get everybody everything they need. Keep watching Facebook, keep watching your emails in particular. We're putting out all of the heavy details that way. So the meeting registration. And thank you all. We have been having some problems in past weeks with folks registering late and not getting in. And this week, everybody was in good time. So thank you for that. It makes it much easier to run the meeting. We do have ongoing need for people to participate in making videos, both scripture and music videos. The more people we can have share that, the better it is. So let me know if you'd like to participate. Let Paul Maliska know if you'd like to participate. We have all kinds of possibilities. We are continuing to collect food for the St. James Food Pantry, and that donation bin is still there on the porch, so you can drop things off anytime you're passing the church. I know that we've also been continuing with our monthly service down at Dorothy Day, and that should be coming up in just a couple weeks, September 26th. Church office remains open. Bev is there for you. If you need assistance with anything, give her a call. You can also call me, and I'm happy to help out as I can. And the church continues doing the work of the church. We've got the online giving set up so you can make sure that you keep paying your pledge. And if you'd like to make additional contributions for the Deacons Fund, we've had a couple expenditures from that in recent weeks. So if you've got a little bit extra and would like to note that as a separate contribution, we would be happy to include that. And you can just do that with the online giving option. Those are the announcements I've got. Does anybody else have anything that we need to share? Yes, Pam?
I just want to follow up on Dorothy Day. Val is coordinating the meal part. We are going to do just sandwiches again this month. And I'm looking for some volunteers to come down and help. Probably about 3 more people would be great. There's lots of PPE down there. We social distance when we hand out meals to the guests. They're not allowed into Dorothy Day. They have to come to the door with a mask. So if you're interested in helping out with the meal part, you can let Val know. If you're interested in coming down to help out to serve, you can let me know. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you both for the parts of that work that you're doing to make everything happen.
God is everywhere. God is everywhere. Always there beside you. Always there to guide you. God is everywhere. Where a child is born, where a girl is crying, where a man is dying, he is always there. When your heart is weary and troubled, dismayed, love and consolation are just a prayer away. See him in the the sounds of laughter are in silence after we are safe at rest and all the world is dark. God is everywhere, peak or everywhere, the singing of the Lord. Let his sounds of laughter are in silence after we are safe at rest and all the world is dark. God is everywhere, everywhere around you. Let his love surround you. God is everywhere. God is everywhere. God is everywhere.
Why have we gathered here on this holy day? What has drawn us to this time and place?
We have been drawn to a flame burning here. We sense the glory of God in this place.
Calls us to this time of worship. The place where we are standing is holy ground.
Give thanks to God. Sing praises. Give attention to the voice of God.
Burning bush, God spoke to Moses. In the rhymes of worship, God speaks to us.
We will listen for God's message to us. Surely God's strength will supply our needs. And our opening hymn today is Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise. And just pay attention, because on verse 3, Steve drops to harmony. So as you sing along at home, make sure that you make sure that you sing that melody, especially in verse 3.
Immortal, invisible, God only wise, in light inaccessible, hid from our eyes. Most blessed, most glorious, the Ancient of Days, Almighty, victorious, thy great name we praise. Unresting, unhasting, and silent as light, nor wanting, nor wasting, thou rulest in might. Thy justice like mountains, high soaring above, thy clouds which are fountains of goodness and love. Through all life thou givest to both great and small. In all life thou livest the true life of all. We blossom and flourish as leaves on the tree, and wither and perish, but not changeth thee. Thou reignest in glory, thou dwellest in light. Thine angels adore thee, all veiling their sight. All praises we render, oh, help us to see that only the splendor of light hideth thee.
We tremble to think that the source of all life, the creator of all worlds, is in this place, observing our worship, knowing our innermost secrets, calling us by name. O God, we dare to call on you, to bow before you, to welcome your word. We tremble to think what you might expect of us, for remember what you expected of Moses. You sent him against the rulers of his people to win release from oppression. You sent him from the comfortable places he knew to plead for freedom amid threatening conditions. We dare to worship you, O God, knowing that you expect much of us. Amen.
Today, in the midst of our worship, we pause and reflect on our own lives. We think about the places where God has called out to us, speaking from, if not a literal burning bush, at least from a metaphorical one. Those places where we have heard, yet turned away. Those places where we have not followed God's commands. Let us then offer our prayer of confession together. O God, we have wavered in our faith in the midst of suffering, and we have not persevered in prayer. We have claimed to be wiser than we are, and have even tried to correct you. We make excuses for ourselves rather than listening for your direction and heeding your call. Our days are so filled with the busyness of this world that we cannot see your reign among us. We are so weighed down by our own concerns that we have no energy to serve in your realm. Send your cleansing fire among us, forgiving God. Amen. Beloved in Christ, the good news is that we are indeed a forgiven people. That even though we wander astray, God draws us back. Even though we insist on our own ways, God shows us a still more excellent way. And so I declare to you that we are forgiven, that we are reclaimed by God's love and grace, and empowered to live as God's own people. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Back before anybody had invented GPS or radar or even radio, sailors used to use lighthouses like this one to help them find their way. I'm here today at the Kingsland Point Lighthouse in Sleepy Hollow, New York, on the Hudson River, just above the Tappan Zee Bridge. This lighthouse was built back in 1883, and 12 generations of lighthouse keepers lived here with their families, climbing the 5 flights of stairs every night to light the lamp at the top that burned brightly with kerosene or whale oil. It makes me think of how in today's reading from Exodus, Moses followed a flame, how he found a burning bush when he was out taking care of his father-in-law's sheep, and he went to investigate. And he found that that bush that was on fire kept burning and burning, yet was never burned up. And then he heard the voice of God, calling him to go to Egypt, to talk to Pharaoh and to free the people. A lot of the time we find God signaling to us, not with lighthouses all the time, not with burning bushes, but sometimes through kind words, words of family or friends, things we learn in church, things that our parents or our grandparents teach us. And we hear God talking to us in that, and it helps us find our way through life. My prayer for you is that you might keep your ears open, that you might keep your eyes open, that you might find God shining brightly in the world, helping you know what to do. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for lighthouses and burning bushes and for all of the other ways that you signal us. Help us to follow your signals that we might live faithfully. Amen.
The first reading is a reading from Exodus, chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Oreb, the mountain of God. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, "I must turn aside and look at this great sight, and see why the bush is not burned up." When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground." He said further, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivitites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has now come to me. I have also seen how the Egyptians oppress them. So come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He said, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, if I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, thus you shall say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this my title for all generations. The second reading is Psalm 105. Oh, give thanks to God. Call on God's name. Make known God's deeds among the peoples. Sing to God. Sing praises to God. Tell of all God's wonderful works. Glory in God's holy name. Let the hearts of those who seek God rejoice. Seek God in God's strength. Seek God's presence continually. Remember the wonderful works God has done, God's miracles and the judgments God uttered. O offspring of God's servant, Abraham, children of Jacob, God's chosen ones. Then Israel came to Egypt. Jacob lived as an alien in the land of Ham, and God made God's people very fruitful and made them stronger than their foes, whose hearts God then turned to hate God's people, to deal craftily with God's servants. God sent God's servant Moses and Aaron, whom God had chosen. Praise God.
Would you pray with me? Speak to us, O God. Call us to your service. Touch our lives and transform us through your power. Amen. I feel a little bit sorry for Moses. He was minding his own business. He was tending the flock of his father-in-law, taking care of what needed to be done. Our lives are like that, aren't they? We have our agendas set for the day. We try and get through the day without too much disruption. We try and take care of the things that need doing. And that's all that Moses was trying to do. Well, maybe. He had been raised in Pharaoh's court. He had been told the stories of his Jewish ancestry. The jump between last week's scripture reading, when he was placed in a basket among the rushes, and today's reading, where he encounters God in a burning bush, a whole lot has taken place. He has observed an overseer, a taskmaster, an Egyptian official, beating a Jewish slave. He has defended that slave, going so far as to kill the overseer. He's been involved in the work of defending the Hebrew people, and he's also run for his life. That's how he has ended up married to Zipporah. That's how he has ended up with Jethro as his father-in-law. That's how he's ended up taking care of this flock of sheep. And so for Moses, tending this flock is part of his running away from Egypt. It's part of his ducking his responsibilities. It looks like he's being responsible, but he isn't so very much. And so while he's out there taking care of the sheep, God calls to him. First with that flicker of flame from the bush that is on fire but not consumed, and then from a voice that calls him to go back into Egypt, to speak to Pharaoh, to be a voice for justice for the oppressed, to be a voice for liberty for the captives. It's a great story, and it resonates with our lives in so many ways, as Moses begins making excuse after excuse about why he couldn't possibly go back to Egypt to be God's voice for the people. But eventually, Moses goes. That's actually tomorrow or next week's reading, so we're not going to jump that far ahead. But today is the day where we catch that story, where Moses' life pivots once again. He hears God's call to go out and transform systems of oppression and to bring liberation. It's no surprise, really, that Moses has become such a central part of our American story. For African Americans living under the yoke of oppression, Moses was a sign of liberation. For slaves dreaming of freedom, Moses held that hope of better days ahead. Is it any surprise that Harriet Tubman was called Moses, as she led the people from slavery to freedom? Martin Luther King Jr. also channeled Moses a bit as he gave his "I have been to the mountaintop" speech, using that Moses image of looking over into the promised land. This image of Moses, of the leader who speaks God's word and leads the people on a path forward to freedom, is very much part of our American story. In recent days, we have found some burning bushes, some bushes that call us to see things differently. We have seen civil unrest across our country in numerous cities. We have seen concerns for racial justice boiling up, and we have seen the violence that it has sparked. For us, we don't need to have a flame that we can't explain. All we need to do is pick up the newspaper or turn on the news. There's a flame burning brightly, calling us to look and to listen. It seems that this flame crops up every couple weeks. It hasn't been that long since we were talking about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And now, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we have a story of a police officer who shot another unarmed black man, Jacob Blake, 7 times in the back, leaving him paralyzed. Now, there are some who will argue that Blake wasn't perfect, so it's okay that the officer shot him. Other people will argue that all police officers are racist and just waiting to find a black person that they can shoot. Neither, of course, is true. The truth is nuanced. Even people who aren't Eagle Scouts deserve not to be shot in the back by police. Most police officers are trying their best to protect and to serve the population in very difficult circumstances. And while these things are true, they don't change the fact that our nation has systems of racism that, when coupled with our fetishistic relationship with firearms, makes events like what happened in Kenosha all too common. And when we add to that the far-right, white supremacist militia movements that have been on the rise in our country over the last few years, things get even worse. Only 2 days after Jacob Blake was shot, these militia members descended on Kenosha, ostensibly to keep the peace. One of them, a 17-year-old boy, showed up with an AR-15 that he wasn't even legally allowed to be carrying. He killed 2 protesters and wounded a third, firing some of the shots in full view of the police officers, and was allowed to leave the scene and cross state lines to return home. We look at this story. We see all of this unfolding in our country. It's like a burning bush calling us to pay attention. We listen for the voice of God, telling us what we should do. Well, let's start with what we shouldn't be doing. Don't let internet memes be your primary source of information. You're smarter than that. Don't just listen to news sources at the extremes of the political spectrum. In fact, it's probably best if you don't listen to those at all. Don't abdicate your responsibility to think for yourself. Instead, seek out actual information and not just propaganda. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that everyone who disagrees with you is evil. There are other voices that we all need to hear, voices that challenge our own assumptions, voices that make us reconsider and think more deeply so that we can come to better conclusions. Don't believe political leaders who peddle in racism and fear. The final don't allow yourselves to be overwhelmed with anger or despair. We are decidedly in dark times, but things can get better. But what should we do? What are the things that God calls us actively to do? Do make a point of engaging in conversation with people who hold different opinions than you do. You just might learn something, and they might too. Do educate yourselves. Read books like White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, or So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. Do have those tough conversations with people who look like you and call out racism when you see it. Do try to keep an open mind when people call you out for your racism, because we're all racist. We all have things that are part of our lives that we need to let go of, that we can move forward honestly. And when we are willing to change, it sets an example for others. Do keep supporting people and organizations that work for equality and racial justice. And do keep looking for ways that you can be involved. Put on your mask and go to a protest. Volunteer for a political candidate that you believe will work for justice. For God's sake, make sure that you're registered to vote. And then in November, follow through, either in person or with an absentee ballot. There are plenty of other things that we can do too. As we look for God's way forward, as we try and hear ways that God calls us to speak a word of justice for the oppressed. When Moses saw that burning bush and heard God's call to go to Pharaoh and to bring the Israelites out of Egypt, he was terrified. He made excuses. He had a dozen reasons why he couldn't possibly be a voice for freedom. When we hear God calling us to work for freedom and for justice, it's terrifying too. We're tempted to make excuses. I marched in the 60s, so I've done my part. I'm too busy. I don't like to get involved with politics. Even so, God calls us to move beyond our excuses. May we then see the signals all around us, see those burning bushes that call us to respond. May we roll up our sleeves, and as those who carry a word of God, may we get to work, transforming our nation and our society. Amen. Let us pray. Holy God, we come as your people, as your loving children, as folks who need to be reminded every now and again just what it is we are supposed to be doing in the world. Show us some signs, lighthouses, burning bushes, calling us to pay attention and to follow. We give you thanks for the blessings that fill our lives, for the birthdays that we're celebrating this week, Jenny's 13th and Emma's 17th and Beth's 40th. And we ask that you would bless each of them through this new year. We ask your blessing for Emily and Mike, expecting a baby girl, that you would be with Emily during this pregnancy, that you would bless them as a couple as they await this gift of new life. We rejoice with John and Sherry at their 26th wedding anniversary and ask that you would continue to bless them with love. We give you thanks for Emily finding a new job, purchasing a new car that will get her there reliably. And we ask that you would grant her your strength. We pray for Emily and Mark as they move into a formal process of divorce, that you would be present even in this challenging time with strength and courage. And we ask your particular presence with Ilana and Anna, that you would give them the strength that they need as their family changes. We give you thanks for Jen's sisters moving forward medically, following the horrific burns that she sustained several weeks ago. And we ask that you would be with all of her family as they continue to support her on her journey of healing. We ask your blessing for David as he goes through rehab after a fall, that you would be with Matt as he has x-rays taken, that you would be with the process of his bones healing. And we ask your blessing for Matthew as he recovers from surgery. Be with Bob as he deals with the complications of cancer, And we ask that you would be with Shannon's friend, going through custody battles. We ask your blessing, O God, for our nation as we deal with so many challenges. As we continue to deal with our response to the coronavirus, we ask that you would give a holy nudge to those folks who need to remember to keep their darn masks on. And we ask that you would be with those in positions of authority who make decisions about how we as a nation respond to this pandemic. We see the racial unrest in our nation. And we pause and we ask your blessing for the people of Kenosha as they go through this challenging time following the shooting of Jacob Blake. We ask that you would be with them in their calls for justice. We ask that you would be with them as they deal with an influx of white supremacists into their community. We pray also for police officers, for those who do their best to protect us. We ask your strength and your courage and your blessing. We ask that you would help the good police officers, who are so many, stand up to systems of oppression and racism, that they might indeed be forces for systemic good, as well as forces for good in individual circumstances. And we pray for ourselves as well, O God, asking that you would help us as a church, as individuals, that you would help us to find your call for how we can be active in building justice for the oppressed. Speak to us and show us your signs. We ask also that you would be with us in our personal and private needs, in those things that we choose not to speak in front of one another, but that we offer you, trusting you to hear our prayers even in the silence of this moment. Hear our prayers, O God, for indeed we offer them as your children. We offer them in faith, in trust, and in the name of our brother Jesus, who taught us to pray, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Our stewardship encompasses the totality of how we live. How we give to the church, yes. How we make our financial decisions at the grocery store. How we budget our time. How we spend ourselves doing God's work. In all of this, we are called to faithfulness. May you then, may all of us be faithful as we respond to God's call for our lives, in our time, our talents, our treasures, our prayers, and our work.
God, speak to me that I may speak in living echoes of your tone. As you have sought, so let me seek your erring children lost and lone. Oh, lead me, God, that I may lead some wanderers along life's way. Oh, feed me so that I may feed your hungry ones without delay. Oh, fill me with your fullness, God, your overflowing love to know. In glowing word and kindling thought, your love to tell, your praise to show. Oh, use me, God, use even me, just as you will, and when and where, until your blessed face I see, your rest, your joy, your glory share.
Dear ones, keep your eyes open, for there are burning bushes all around us, calling us to lives of faith and work and justice. As we go from this time of worship into the world around us, let us go forth as God's people. Let us go forth doing God's work wherever we may find ourselves. And as we go forth, let us go forth in the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, in the love of God, and in the power and community of the Holy Spirit, who is indeed with us, now and always. Amen.